Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2022 Ford Expedition and we're going to be taking a look at and I'm going to show you how to install the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system. The 5 main flat towing components in order to get your Expedition down the road behind your RV is going to be your base plate, your tow bar, a supplemental braking system, your safety cables, and your diode wiring. Adding a supplemental braking system to your Ford Expedition for flat towing is going to allow you to apply the brakes in the Ford Expedition so that it is stopping itself while the motorhome is going to apply the brakes in itself. That way it's stopping each other proportionally. You can think of it a lot like the brakes on a trailer. If you have a trailer over a certain amount of weight in your specific state, you have to have brakes on them. And that is because the trailer is heavy enough to where if you were to just try to stop with the motorhome, it's going to continue to push the motorhome and it's going to prematurely wear out the brakes in the motorhome itself. And these brakes are very, very expensive, and I'm sure you know that. So having brakes in your vehicle behind your motorhome is going to allow the whole rig to stop much safer. The Air Force One system is going to be designed to be paired with motorhomes that have air brakes, because you can send an air signal back to your Expedition, applying the brakes to the brake cylinder inside the footwell of your Expedition. If you do not have air brakes on your motorhome and you have electric over hydraulic brakes, I would highly recommend the Demco Stay and Play Duo, which is designed for electric over hydraulic brakes. It's just going to get the inertia through a G-force controller that you will mount on the inside of the footwell. That is going to sense the coach stopping and apply the brakes in your Expedition. If you do not want one of those two permanently installed systems, we have portable systems that you can get to put in the footwell. I highly recommend the Blue Ox Patriot. That is a great system and lots of people love it. The main operating unit, which is this box right here, is going to mount underneath the hood. That's typically where people put them. You can put it inside the car if you want, but it is designed to be out underneath the hood. This is going to take the air signal from the coach and deliver it to the brake cylinder on our brake pedal. In the footwell of our vehicle, you can see the brake cylinder that is attached to our brake pedal. This is what's going to do the physical act of braking. When it receives that air signal from the main operating unit under our hood, it will apply the brakes in our Expedition. This kit is going to include your emergency breakaway switch, which in an unlikely disconnect, this plunger is going to be pulled by the motorhome from this cable, and it's going to apply the brakes in the vehicle, bringing it to a safe and slow stop. It will also include this pigtail that will allow you to hook up to the chuck on the front of your vehicle and attach it to the chuck on the back of your motorhome. And when you're looking to pick up this kit, there's 2 different types of kits available. One that we installed today, which is going to include your Expedition side and the motorhome side, because there's going to be some stuff that we need to install on the motorhome so we can get the correct amount of air pressure back to our Expedition. If your coach already has one, or this may be a selling point for you too, if your coach already has one and you decide to get a new vehicle later on down the road, you don't have to take that system off, because I highly doubt you're going to take all this stuff off the front of your vehicle. You'll probably just sell it as is to somebody else who wants to flat tow it. You don't have to buy that whole kit again. You can just get the second vehicle kit, throw it on your new Expedition or your new car, whatever you decide to get later on down the road, and the motorhome stuff stays as is on the motorhome. That also goes for if you have a Freightliner or a Spartan chassis, you can just get the second vehicle kit so you don't have to buy the whole kit. I would personally recommend picking up the kit that comes with the Demco Coach Link. This is going to be your monitor to tell you whether or not the system is working properly. These 3 LED lights on here will illuminate when you hit the brakes. So I'm off the brakes now. They go off. If you have your brakes on for more than about 7 to 8 seconds, you'll hear a beep, which is telling you that the brakes are still applied in the vehicle back there. So where this is more so designed to be used is the if you have a problem and you're headed down the road, those LED lights should not be on if you're headed 70 miles an hour down the road. And that beeper is designed to come on to tell you that the brakes are still on. You do have a little switch back here if you do not like the buzzer and you just want to look at it. You can turn that buzzer off and it won't make any noise. The reason why I like the Coach Link more than the physical LED light, because that's the other style of kit that's available, that will actually be the only difference between the 2 kits, is that you'll get an LED light that you typically will stick them to the backs of the mirrors. The reason I don't like that is because you have to rely on your rear camera system on your coach to be able to see that LED light when you're holding the brakes. There's also no buzzer noise to let you know if there's a problem with the system. You just have to rely on looking at your camera in order to see that. A couple of problems with that is if your rear view camera is dirty or if your windshield's dirty or vice versa, you're not going to be able to see that light. At night, it's very, very visible because this LED light will light up the whole front of your windshield red and you'll be able to see that in your camera. The problem is a lot of people don't flat tow at night. They like to flat tow during the day so that they can drive during the day, get to their campsite, and set up camp. As far as the installation goes, this particular install, I don't think it's too bad. Hopefully with my help in this video, you can get yours installed if you want to do it yourself. If you don't feel like doing this install or you don't have the ability to do it, check out our dealer locator and you can find a dealer closest to you that can get this installation done. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at that now. To begin our installation, we're going to need to get our main components installed first. And the main components in this particular kit are going to start with your main operating unit, which we mounted up to. We just made up a little L bracket. We had a little piece of scrap steel. Just used some self-tapping screws, tapped it right here into the side of our engine bay, and then bolted our operating unit to it so that we can still get to the fittings over here on the side. Our breakaway switch we mounted directly to the right side of the passenger part of our base plate. It just sticks out of our opening here. It worked out really, really nice. I used a small little piece of bracket, self-tapped it into the framework on our Expedition here, and then just bolted it with the supplied hardware for our breakaway switch. Our air fitting, I made another bracket to be able to bolt to the side of our base plate. I just took the 2 bolts. This is an etrailer base plate. Took the 2 bolts back out of the base plate, had a piece of flat bar, came out, put a bend in it, and then I just disassembled the air fitting off of the factory bracket that it comes with, and then added it to our bracket here. The last component that we'll need to get mounted up before we start routing wiring or do any hose work is going to be our brake cylinder. Our brake cylinder will mount to the side of our brake pedal using the bracket included. We will also want to take the plate that's included, it has 3 holes in it. We need to mount it to the firewall. The firewall straight behind where you can see ours mounted up right here, just to the right of the carpeting, is free of anything from behind it, so you can use that opening. And then it will include self-tapping screws to get this mounted, and you want to put the foot in the center of that plate. The next step in our process is going to be running some airline and running some wiring. Right down in this area, you can see there's a grommet. I've got the wires and the airlines run through that grommet already. That is where you're going to run through to get into the footwell of our driver's side. There's a little, like a little nub on the rubber down in here. Just cut a small slit in it. You'll have to go into the footwell, poke a small hole in it, run the airline with your wiring, because both of those have to be down in there anyway, and fish wire that down into the footwell. To get our wiring hooked up in the footwell of our driver's side, to start with our coach link receiver here, or the sender actually, you'll want to connect the red wire on that to your 12-volt source coming in from outside. This will eventually get hooked up to our battery. We always like to run at least 1 extra wire in. That's what this black wire is for, in case we needed a brake light relay, which we do not, because the Ford Expedition does go to sleep and the brake lights do not activate after it's been shut down for a while. The white wire on the wireless coach link needs to go to the brown wire on our reed switch. The reed switch is right here on the side of our brake cylinder. And then the blue wire on our the switch here needs to go to the ground wire, which we have running out to the engine bay. Now back out in our engine bay, we need to connect up a couple more wires. We've got the 2 down by our breakaway switch that we still need to do, so we need to remember that. And then up here by our main operating unit, we're going to have 2 black wires that are coming out of the bottom of it. One of them is right here and it is not connected. That needs to go to the black wire coming off our breakaway switch. The other black wire we ran just behind the main operating unit, and we tied it into the ground wire that's coming in from outside, or coming in outside from inside our footwell. We just tied it in right here with our ground wire and then grounded it to this factory ground. On these vehicles, you have to be very careful of where you ground stuff. This part of the vehicle is steel, but the rest of this here is all going to be aluminum. So just be sure that you're using a factory ground, that way you know it's a solid one. For the airline that we ran down into the footwell of our Expedition, we need to run it out. You can see it right here. You'll want to cut a nice straight end on it, and I'll show you with this extra length of airline. You want to make sure it's nice and straight. You can look in the end of it, make sure that it's perfectly round. That's how you're going to get no leaks out of this system. We'll make a nice straight cut, and then you insert it into the air out outlet on here. The air in is going to be for the motorhome air coming into this system. So we'll get ready to run that line now. We ran our air line down to the front of our bumper. This is where we connected it, and with these push to connect fittings, you just want to make sure that the hose is going all the way in. You'll feel it come to a stop, push a little bit harder, and you'll feel a little pop, and that's it getting past the O-ring. We've got our orange and black wire run up from the bumper of our vehicle, and we've connected the orange wire to a jumper wire. We just need a little bit of extension to get to our fuse holder. And then our power wire coming out in the engine bay from our footwell, we tied that in here too. And then the black wire will need to get connected to the black wire that was left on our main operating unit. Now that's going to pretty much do it for the installation. We've got everything connected up that we need to get connected. The last thing we need to do is going to be to put our fuse, or to connect it up to our battery and then put our fuse in our fuse holder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get all this wiring tidied up here before I do that, and then we'll come back, throw our fuse in, and then we can test out our system. Because our brakes are the electric brakes, if you have a brake booster up here, then you probably have hydro boost brakes, but chances are it's going to be just your normal electric brakes. We will leave this exhaust port open. You'll have a little acorn cap that comes in your kit. Do not use it. And then we're going to take a 2-inch or 3-inch piece of vacuum line, cut that down, slide it over, and then take the cap or the plug that's included in your kit and plug this, because we do not need to use this. Now that we've got the vehicle side done, you've got to turn your attention to the motorhome side. This is that side I was talking about. I would highly recommend having a RV technician do it for you. This particular one was pretty difficult to get to some of the hoses and stuff that you have to make the connections to, so it's a lot easier. We've got lifts to be able to get underneath the RV with a lot more space. But if you feel like doing it yourself, we're going to show you those connections here. On your tank, you just have to find a good place to mount it up. We took this whole side panel off. A lot of these Class A's, you can remove this panel. What we did was I just used 2 self-tapping screws with some big fender washers and just self-tapped it right into this framework here. And then on the fitting side, you're going to have 1 fitting on one side of the tank and 2 on the other. This side has to be your supply air coming into the tank. And then the other side of our tank, you're going to have these other 2. This fitting right here is going to go to the back of the coach. And this fitting right here is going to be coming from your metered air. So this here, where I've got the laser pointer at, that is our metered air connection. This air line was already there, and it was leading to the back of the coach. So what I did was I cut it, I tapped into it, and we used a union fitting right here. That is what we ran to that metered air connection that I showed you on our tank. And then the other line that's already run back to the back of the motorhome, you can see right here is another union fitting. That is where I connected our air line that has to go to the back. It's nice that we didn't have to run that line and that we just used a union to connect it up. When you're tapping into your main air source or the supply air, this fitting right here, I've got the laser pointer on and Jonathan's shooting it from the side here. It's very, very difficult to get up under there, but that's where it needs to go. You need to tap into a big, it's a 5/8 green line typically coming from the air tank. And you'll know that it's the right one. If you cut into it and you hear air hissing, that's the right one. So make that connection. It's just a big push to connect fitting, and then you'll tie your little air line in there like you can see, and then run that to that supply line that I talked to you about on the air tank. In order to test out our system, you're going to have to hook up to your motorhome, but this is going to be a good way to test the motorhome side and the vehicle side. So what you want to do is you want to fire up your motorhome, and then you're going to want to hit the brakes a couple of times. Make sure that your air is filling up in your motorhome tank too. but hit the brakes a couple of times. That'll give your reserve tank in here that we just installed enough time to fill up and get the air back to our brake cylinder. And then you should see the brake cylinder start to depress as you continue to hit the brakes. Now we know everything's working properly, that's going to do it for the installation. Well guys, hopefully this information helped you decide whether or not the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system is right for you in your 2022 Ford Expedition.